Hello, my name is Michael Graham. I'm here with Jeff Browne, the chairman of the EDA. Today's interview is a little different, Jeff. And the reason why I think it's great you're coming in is because a lot of the questions that we've been talking to a lot of the potential candidates coming in center around this police station, right? And the ones we have interviewed so far have had some distinct answers or what they would like to happen in this particular situation. And of course, once we go through some of this, of course, we have a meeting, last night or Wednesday night, where the town made a big announcement on some stuff.
Right.
And it was especially interesting because previous to that, I guess one of the councilmen had made a public statement in a meeting that they had no moral obligation to have anything to do with the police department, which left us in the community a little like, well, what the heck is going on? And during that meeting, now I didn't attend it, but I did watch the video. It seemed there was a lot of confusion from some of the councilmen in that about how much money was owed in interest. In fact, I think that a lot of confusion was from Councilman Seelock, and it was about the difference between the amount that they agreed to or didn't agree to. I don't know. It's kind of confusing whether they agreed to anything, but and the interest that was attached on to that based on the construction. I didn't quite understand what he was saying. How would you respond to him on that? Because you never really got a chance to respond to what he was saying.
Right. Well, I would say this. I mean, Councilman Seelock ought to actually know what was going on since he was on the EDA when the police station was first looked at.
Oh, really? He was on the board.
Right.
Started this whole.
Right.
This whole thing. Okay.
Right. So, but let me just walk through it. Let me start with the process first. Okay. So, what happened on the police station was that the construction company, the engineers would send their bills to the town, to B.J. Wilson. Mm-hmm. He would approve them, send them to EDA. EDA would then send the checks out to the various groups that were working on the police station.
But how I understand that is that the banks wouldn't, the EDA or the banks wouldn't release the money until the EDA, the EDA gave them approval based on what the town approved and sent to the EDA. Is that
correct?
Right?
That's correct.
Okay. That's
right. So what we did starting in September last year was to start sending the town an invoice on a reasonably regular basis of here's what the principal is, here's what the interest is, and that was these were all sent to B.J. Wilson, the finance director. He actually sat down with our accountant and worked through it and said at the time the principal's correct, and the way that you're doing the interest rate is correct. So they've actually known all along what's been happening with this, and they've known
and
what kind
of time frame was this? Is this a
from
month, 2 days, 3 years?
This was started in September. Was the first invoice that we sent them. We didn't send them every month, but we sent them quite regularly so they could see what the interest was accumulating. So
it
over
was
that
September,
time period.
A year, almost over a year.
Over a year at this point.
Yes.
Yeah, well, we're right at a year,
Okay,
essentially,
a year.
very close.
Yes.
But year and a month, I guess. It shouldn't be a surprise to the town that they were accumulating interest this whole time, and they had already agreed that the principal was what it was. The only thing that really seemed to be at issue was what the interest rate was at the time. Mm-hmm. They said it was 1.5%. We said it's whatever we were able to get. And
But as they're approving these bills, was the interest built already into these bills or separately?
No, these were billed separately,
Okay.
and we made it abundantly clear. I've brought. I don't know if you want to stick this up in the middle of it, but you can see that we would send them an interest statement each time, separating exactly what it was.
Okay. And I assume at that time that Councilman Seelock was on the council itself during this process, so. They were all, the council would have been aware of all this ongoing situation, right?
Right.
Yeah, okay. All right.
Yeah. Plus, there were tons of, this wasn't something where we get an $8.4 million loan and then stop talking to one another.
Right.
There were tons of emails back and forth regularly on this. It's an
Right.
important issue, so you would expect that.
Okay. So it wasn't any surprise or anything. This is well known. I mean, this is the process that we're going through, regular business.
Yes.
And so no surprises. Or was there any arguments or debates going on during this period? But the arguments between the town and the EDA and what was owed on this?
Yeah, the only thing was on the what the interest rate was.
Okay.
We originally got a 3.75 construction loan. Then that got converted and brought down to 3%. Let's see here, it would have been July 2018, so pretty soon after the construction loan. And
Wait.
from there.
This is new information.
Okay.
So in other words, you started out and there was 3.7% interest put in there. Somewhere down the line, did you initiate that, or did somebody else initiate that?
I believe that it was done by EDA just to save money for the town.
Okay, so they were looking out for the interests of the town, so they really found a better deal.
Yes.
Okay, and that went from 3.7 to 3.
Yeah, 3.75 to 3.
Okay, well, okay.
0.75% of interest on $8.4 million is a big deal.
So again, if somebody must have communicated back to the town, say, look, we're doing you guys a favor.
Right.
We're actually going to reduce the interest rate from 3.7 to 3.5 for the construction, or 3.0 for the construction loan
Correct.
portion of this.
Yep.
Did anybody complain at what you were doing?
I'm unaware of anything. Of course, I wasn't on the board then, so
Okay, all right.
I can't speak to it specifically. But I don't think anyone objected to saving money.
Okay. So I'm sorry. Sorry to interrupt there. So now you've lowered the price for them. Nobody seemed to complain about lowering the price, and the process was just going smoothly during the construction.
It was. The town was still hoping it would get a 1.5% interest rate. I think at some point, I understand that Jennifer McDonald anticipated getting a 1.5% interest rate, but we were never able to get it. People Inc. actually came in and had a conversation with the town council. I think there's a Royal Examiner interview actually in the newspaper that you can go up and look. And the town said, well, we can get a 2.65 interest rate, which would be lower than the 3. And the fellow came in from the People Inc. said, you ought to take that because it's uncertain that you're going to be able to get this 1.5. It later turned out that the town didn't qualify for the loan in the first place, so they would have never gotten it under any circumstance.
Why? I mean, why was there a problem with the qualifications at that point?
Well, it had to do with there were several criteria that we failed. The one that I remember is whether or not this would, if you got the lower interest rate, you'd be able to have more jobs. And since it was for paying for a police force, the police force was already constituted. They weren't going to be hiring more people. They didn't meet that particular criteria. But as I recall, there were 2 or 3 things that were problems with it. So it wasn't going to happen.
So somewhere in this process, the People Inc. people came and pretty much told and informed the council at that point that the 1.5 that was promised earlier wasn't going to happen because they couldn't get to that funding mechanism or instrument because it didn't meet the qualifications to meet that level, right?
Yeah, it's not quite that simple because the People Inc. discussions went over a 3-year period.
Okay. Right.
So it's been it was a lengthy time period, but somewhere in there it was obvious that they weren't going to get the 1.5.
Okay.
But I think the 2.65 came before it was clear that the town wasn't going to qualify for it.
Okay, so it wasn't any really surprise. This has been a process that they've been working on for a long time.
Right.
Talking about it, so it wasn't that nobody was talking about it or trying to work through the process.
Yeah, correct.
It was kind of evolving into whatever it got to.
Yeah, and it's like a lot of times when you're trying to build a house, you're trying to build a building or something. Yeah. There's always complications when you're doing the financing until you have the check and you've cashed it. It's always up in the air.
Well, Jeff, one of the questions I have is, so as this process is going on, they're not happy with the interest rate. were they obligated to actually do this through the EDA, or could they have gone out any time and possibly gotten a lot lower interest rate?
They could have gone out any time and gotten another interest rate. There are various times when there are open periods to get certain kinds of loans, but they could have gone to a commercial bank like they did with United at any point.
At any point. So at any point in that process, they could have, if they could have found a lower than 1.5, or get down to the 1.5, they could have gone out without any problems at all.
Exactly.
Okay, well, that's an interesting question. Help me again. These are some of the citizens come to me and ask me questions on how this stuff, and a lot of people are not really, know a lot about financing, especially when you're dealing with municipality finance versus normal commercial.
Right.
How, and in most cases, you would go out and get a construction loan, and then you'd get your permanent bank would give you the permanent financing, so the construction would be all paid with the bank making a little money on that also, who gave you the loan to begin with.
Right.
And then of course, whatever that total sum was, it'd be refinanced. Whoever took out the permanent financing. Is that how this works? I mean, is that how it works with the EDA and a government type of opportunity?
Well, this particular one worked a little differently than that because we had the construction loan just for a short period of time and then converted it. So, but it was very much the same where in this case, the town should have known exactly what they owed the EDA, and they could have gone out and got a construction or gotten a permanent loan for it at very desirable rates right now. I think last month they could have gotten it for as low as 1.5.
Okay.
So I'm not sure what they came up with because we haven't heard yet. So
didn't they? I mean, was not announced at the meeting what the terms of the agreements were?
No, they didn't announce that.
Really?
Nor do we know how much exactly the loan is for.
Okay. I assume that'll be released sometime soon. I assume, right?
Yeah. I don't know.
Okay. Well, which brings into another question: lawsuits. Now, barring all the other lawsuits, and we're talking about only specifically this one, and as it pertains to the police station, how many lawsuits are they, and who is suing who, and for what reasons?
Well, in focusing on the police station and the town and EDA, there too. The town originally sued EDA, and then recently
they were suing the EDA for what?
Well, they have it's a very complicated suit. It's 500 allegations, as I recall, and they have a variety of theories under which they feel like they're due money. They one of the things that they listed was the police station and the cost for constructing it, even though we haven't gotten any money from them yet. So
right.
on it, so it's a little confusing.
Yeah.
I am an attorney, but I don't always understand lawsuits when they're filed, and this is somewhat confusing.
So that's the town.
That's
Now,
the town.
What about the EDA coming back?
So the EDA, we felt we were up against a potential statute of limitations problem.
What would the limitations? What would have happened if you hadn't done what you did?
Well, if you don't sue in a timely fashion before the statute of limitations runs out, you lose the ability to sue over it. So we would have had no recourse against the town to go after they approved the building, they approved the construction of it, they moved into it with the police force, and then they'd say, well, we aren't going to pay you anything for it, we got it for free. So, I mean, that's what could happen under the law, and you want to avoid that.
Well, I think it's probably pretty prudent you guys were aware of that.
Yeah.
And did what you did. Well, that makes a lot of sense on that one. So, in other words, if you hadn't filed that lawsuit, they would have got the building for nothing.
Yeah, it's at a certain point. It hasn't quite come up yet, but I'm not one to wait till the last day.
No. I think it's very prudent. You're very prudent for it. So, during this announcement they had, it seemed like a lot of the councilmen, not just Mr. Seelock, but a lot of them were really very unhappy with the working with the EDA and the county. In fact, they said that it was very difficult. And you guys made it very difficult for them to work out something because of just the positions you guys were taking against them. I mean, Do you support that? I mean, it sounds like you guys were pretty much working, try to find a solution over at least a year, and for them to come out, is that shocking to you that they would take that position?
Well, I mean, I would love to see what they think is our unwillingness to work with them. In our view, they owed us $9 million, and for us not to try to work with them doesn't, to me, make rational sense. That obviously we'd be trying to work with them to get that money, to find a way to do it. I know I participated in meetings with the mayor and Mr. Seelock, where we tried to work on that, and they talked about getting financing, and then nothing would happen. More recently, we've heard of overtures, but nothing that was directed to us, so we had no idea that was going on. They, for example, said we got this loan with no help from EDA or the county, but we actually didn't know that they were out looking for the loan, so it was hard to help them when we didn't know about it.
Right.
So I would say that the county has really bent over backwards to try to make it work. I know when the new members came in, one of the very first things they did was try to sit down with town council members and say, look, let's try to work out our differences. We should be working together. And that's certainly been our philosophy at EDA. We're one economic unit. We ought to be working together. We shouldn't be having these lawsuits going on. It hurts your ability to market yourselves, and it distracts you from doing the important things you ought to be doing. So, but they sat down, they tried to work with town council, and they were basically rebuffed by saying, well, we're in a lawsuit, we can't talk to you about it. And I am pretty sure that Dolores Oates sat and contacted Mr. Tiedrick and said, hey, we'd like to sit and try to talk about the police station with you. She was the one that set it up. So I think the overtures have really been coming from our side, but people have different perspectives. So, but I'd be happy to outline other things that we've done or what the county has done to try to work with the town. But it's in our interest to work together.
Well, just as an example, one of the things I've heard them complain about is the fact that they said that the town actually sent payments over 2 separate times above and beyond the one they just did in August, where they were splitting with everybody some of that, and that those checks were not cashed and ignored.
Yeah, frankly, I was surprised. The first time I heard about it was today when you mentioned, what about this? And I go, I don't know anything about it. I mean, I haven't been there since they did all the financing on the police station. I've been there since I guess May of last year, so I'm not aware of it. But I would think in general that if somebody owed you money and they sent you money, that unless there were strings attached to it, that you couldn't, if you signed it, you'd be giving away your rights to the rest of the money or something. Right. That you'd probably go ahead and cash it. So, but I'm unaware of it. Okay. I'm sorry that it did happen though, because clearly I would tell you now with the new EDA with a new group there, that we'd be right on top of that. And I have to say this, it's important that I am appreciative that the town did take a positive step to at least resolving part of the issues that we have between us. And I said this on Wednesday night, let's look at the positive. Let's be appreciative that they're taking a good first step, and let's hope it's a step that continues.
Okay. Well, in kind of closing here, I guess, with this kind of not playing fair or nice or whatever it is, a comment was made that the current EDA, that they couldn't do certain things because the EDA had all that baggage, and it didn't allow them the ability to talk with you or negotiate with you because of this. They keep referring to the EDA, but you're really a different EDA. It's almost like a new organization now, what has happened since all that other stuff is going on.
Right.
And with that in mind, if it's a new EDA, what would you like to see? How do you like to see this going to end? What's the end in mind here? What would you like to see moving forward from this point on?
Well, I think you have to start with the belief that the town, the county, EDA, we're all one economic entity. And we should have similar, if not the same, goals.
Right.
And we ought to be working together, cooperating with one another, respecting each other, but working together in a way that's going to benefit the people who live here. I mean, that's why I got onto the EDA. Yeah. And I'd like to see resolution of the town's lawsuit against EDA. I'd like to see the rest of the payments that are due EDA paid by the town. And I'd
Because you still have Leech Run Parkway and some other things, right?
Yeah, Leech Run, West Main Connector, some other things that have been gone unpaid for a number of years. Okay. So we'd like to see those resolved. But none of these things are insurmountable. But you have to have the right attitude and mindset to go into it and say, look, let's stop treating the other side as being an enemy and suspicious of everything they do, and sit and start talking together. How do we work together? How do we resolve these things? Are there real issues that the town has with the EDA in terms of things that were done? We're happy to sit and talk about it, and we've said that repeatedly, time and time again. And I'll offer it again today that we're happy to do that. And if this town council can't do it, I'm hoping that we get a town council in January, and that gets elected on November 3rd, that will do so.
Okay, great. Well, thanks, Jeff, for coming in. I think that kind of clears up things. At least it's cleared up a lot for me. Sometimes it's hard to get to the truth, and there's always two sides to a story. And based on what I saw on Wednesday, it seemed like it was a little bit lopsided on only one view. So thanks for coming in. And like I said, thank you for kind of clarifying this, because this is a big issue. In fact, every one of the candidates that have been interviewed so far has talked about this particular situation. So this is just as they say, breaking news. And I'm sure that when we bring other candidates in, it will be reflective. Their comments will be reflective of what's just happened this week.
Well, we're happy to come in anytime that we can talk to you about economic development and what we can do together.
Okay, great. Thanks a lot, Jeff.
Thank you.